So welcome. We're happy that you guys took the time out of your schedule today to be with us for the recipe for what makes a good leader. Just want to talk a little bit about the Women's Council of Property Managers. Our 2022 theme is the Empowering Women in Leadership. And the purpose of the council is to focus on the development of leadership qualities in women. The council wants to help women become better businesswomen, speakers, and leaders in their communities, as well as in the real estate and property management industries. So if you want to learn more about the mission, there's a very long description of what we're about and what we hope to do this year in 2022 on the NARPM.org website. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to our premier sponsor, Second Nature, Tyler Nichols. Thank you so much for sponsoring this event, and he gets to say a few words.
Yeah, so it's so good to see everybody. Welcome to the event. Hey, listen, if you're unfamiliar with Second Nature, we are the resident benefits package experts in the NARPM field. And it's funny looking around on the call, I can see some businesses that are in the call that are making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 per year on the resident benefits package. And I think we even had like Atrium just let us know the other day they were making a couple hundred thousand in profit on the benefits package. But one of the ways that we do that and we're able to provide such value is we actually manage the entire benefits package for you. So there's no more portals of logging in, starting subscriptions, stopping subscriptions. We actually handle all that for you. So if we haven't had a conversation, we'd love to chat with you at some point. But like I said, just so good to see everybody. Thank you all for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then we'll turn it over to Tim, who would like to talk about Tenant Turner. He is our registration sponsor for today as well. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I love all these faces that I'm seeing. It's a great crowd. Tenant Turner is excited to be part of this because we work with so many of you, and at the same time, even the people that we don't work with, we know that you're making impacts in the industry. We love this council and everything you guys stand for. If you aren't familiar with Tenant Turner, we help basically simplify your entire leasing process. So whether that's just assigning a phone number to handle all the inquiries as you get hounded from interested prospects and tenants that are looking at finding a place, to helping schedule all of your showings and self-showings, things like that as well. One of the bigger things that we are emphasizing this year a lot, as has come up with all the craziness that's happened since COVID happened, is our superior fraud prevention. We are really proud of the efforts that we've made in that front, and that just keeps getting better and better for us and our customers. And we love sharing all the things that we're learning throughout all the processes that everyone's going through and learnings and experiences that everyone's having. We want to hear from you guys as well. So a big chunk of NARPM is a lot of our customer base. So feel free to reach out if you have feedback, but at the same time, if you're interested in taking a look at Tenant Turner and simplifying your leasing process, reach out and let me know. We'll be glad to sit down with you and learn about your business as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. All right, I'm going to introduce our moderator for today and then turn it over to him. You have heard a couple words from him already. It is Tyler Nichols. He's a regional sales manager for Second Nature, NARPM's 4-time affiliate of the year. Second Nature specializes in designing, deploying, and managing resident benefits packages for professional property management companies across the United States. Tyler grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and has spent his career specializing in marketing, sales, and leadership. Since starting with Second Nature, Tyler has been focused on developing and growing relationships in the industry with the hopes of bettering the lives and businesses of property managers. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Tyler Nichols.
I love it. Thanks, Rebecca, for the intro. And again, just thank you all for being here. We're really excited about today and what we've got to bring to the table in this panel discussion. And I do just want to lay out kind of some ground rules or a little bit of housekeeping before we bring up our panelists and get everything rocking and rolling here. One of the things that I do want to mention is, and want to encourage, is just to be engaged throughout this process. So I do want to give a shout out. I know a lot of you guys already have cameras on. If for some reason you don't have your camera on, we'd love to see your beautiful faces because as we go through today, we're going to be going into breakout rooms so you guys can have some discussion. Panelists are going to be in some of those rooms with you guys also. And so again, just want to cover that. As you're hearing from some of these panelists throughout today, there's probably going to be some things that maybe you have questions on, or maybe they say something that you really love and you get a nugget. And so I just want to encourage you, any questions that you have, any nuggets that you find, go ahead and post those in the chat. And Rebecca and I will be looking through those over the course of the call, relaying those to the panelists so we can get those answered for you. Last thing I'll say before bringing up the panelists is we're going to be here for a decent chunk of time. I think we're here for about 2.5 hours. So if at any point you need to take a break, a fire comes up, you need to put it out, whatever it may be, totally fine. Step away, turn your camera off, do what you need to do. But again, just want to encourage you, when you do get back to the call, turn the camera back on, let us know that you're here and you're ready to roll. So with that, I think we're ready to get started. I want to first just bring up and introduce all of our panelists, if you're unfamiliar with some of them. So we're going to start with the one and only Miss Jen Rulins. So I want to tell you a little bit about Jen. Jen is the owner and broker of One Focus Property Management, which is celebrating their 10th anniversary this year. Little known fact, it is also the home of the Little League World Series. That is an added bonus that I wanted to make sure I added in there. But Jen got her start in property management as a leasing agent in multifamily, did so well that they made her the property manager of a 300-door complex at only 23 years old. She ended up managing increasingly larger and more complex portfolios until about 2 years. And then she took about a 2-year break where she went and got her MBA at Penn State University, concentrating on finance and real estate. And after business school, she founded her company to bring first-class professional property management services to markets like the ones that she serves now in North Central Pennsylvania. So she does run her company on EOS, serves as the visionary, and is currently working on expanding the depths of services that she provides to her investor clients through new opportunities with things like data analysis, turnkey property development, and syndicated larger projects. So Jen, welcome to the call. Happy to have you.
Hi, Tyler. Thanks.
Absolutely. So next, I want to bring up Miss Rihanna Campbell. For those of you that don't know Rihanna has been supporting the growth of small businesses really for the last 20 years as a coach, as an investor, and as an entrepreneur. She draws from her years of extensive professional and real life experience, as well as her strong educational background. And really, after building and growing and then selling a multi-million-dollar real estate business, she started Proper Planning LLC, which if you're unfamiliar, they're a consultants agency that assists entrepreneurs across the world, helping them define and find business freedom. She's also a teacher at heart. So she's developed and led workshops from a variety of different organizations, presented at national conferences. She's been interviewed numerous times on international-based podcasts. Has also been quoted on many online articles. So we're very happy to have you here, Rihanna.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Good deal. Following Rihanna, we want to bring up Miss Kelly Tollefson. For those of you that haven't met Kelly, I do have to share with you one of my favorite people on the planet. Kelly is both an NPM and an RMP and is the executive vice president and co-founder of T Squared Properties, which is in the Greater Seattle area. Kelly actually began her 27-year career in property management as a landlord, and she was actually managing her own investment properties at the time. She then went on to develop a lot of systems and processes and really industry-leading service standards that answered the needs in the marketplace for a high-quality, tech-driven, cost-effective property management company. And now she and her team have grown T Squared Properties to over 570 doors and 105 homeowner associations. Kelly, love you as always. Great to see you today.
Thank you, Tyler. As Rihanna and Jen said, we're excited to be here. So looking forward to the day.
Love it. Love it. And last, but certainly not least, we have Miss Dee Dee Lee. If you don't know Dee Dee is also NPM RMP, and she's the broker owner of Skyline Properties Group. They're a full service real estate brokerage firm, and they really specialize more in residential community association property management with offices in Ackworth and Fayetteville, Georgia. And Dee Dee's been in the property management business now for 17 years, and she's currently serving as the Southeast RVP for NARPM. If you're on Facebook at all, I think one thing that you have probably noticed is that Dee Dee is an avid runner. Spends a lot of time with her 3 kids. She's actually down in Seaside right now, and we're lucky enough to have her on the call. And she's also a mentor for the North Atlanta Venture Program and a board member of Children's Haven. So with that, we have our all-star master chefs that we're going to get into the discussion today on the recipe for a great leader. So as we get into today, what we'll do, guys, we've actually got a couple different questions. We'll hear from each panelist individually, but I do want to start it off, and feel free to jump in here if you feel called to do so first. But I want to start it off, open it up to all of you panelists, and just ask with the question, which is, what do you think makes a great leader? Or where have you seen a great leader in the past? What really stands out to you specifically?
I'll start. So I think a leader, a good leader is like, the comparison to a Sherpa when you're climbing Mount Everest. They provide you with a Sherpa, right? So the Sherpa's role is to know where they're going. And they're usually ahead of the pack because they need to check out the path and see where, if there is any issues with the path, maybe you need to go another route. And then they come back to the pack and they let them know, hey, don't go this way, go that way, save yourself some time. And if anybody gets left behind or they have troubles, the Sherpa will go and make sure that they're okay. But having a Sherpa in front of you, it's a feeling like someone will be there to take care of you. And to me, that's what a good leader is in a nutshell.
Love that.
Hey, Taylor, I want to dovetail off of that and a little bit of what you touched on there, Dee Dee. I wrote down on this question, I think a great leader is someone who knows when to follow and someone who knows when to guide and direct. And when you think about leadership, like if you look at like a Sherpa, they will get off to the side and let you go because they know the path is safe and let you take on your own pace, your own accomplishment, your own sense of accomplishment. And so they know to move aside. And even I think in a pack of wolves, or you've seen the geese flying, the leader of the pack isn't always the first one. Oftentimes it's the last one to make sure everybody else is moving along. So for me, a great leader is someone who knows when to follow and when to step aside. And when to guide and direct. Yeah.
And just to add to that, Kelly, when I think of a great leader, it's the ability to really identify the strengths and weaknesses of people around them so that they can guide them in the right direction. So, really being able to see this person can do this really well, and this person, has this weaknesses, and pairing people together and teaming people together and taking those strengths and really moving things forward. So I think that's a really key skill in leadership, is really being able to see the people that are around you and what their strengths and weaknesses are.
And then letting them do it, right? Sometimes it's so hard. It's like parenting when you don't want your kid to tie their own shoe because you can do it better, but they need to learn. So, yeah.
When I think about a good leader, a great leader, that is somebody who can see and define and communicate a really compelling vision. So to the Sherpa example, they can say, hey, it's really awesome to climb this mountain. It's going to be great up there. We have a great path up, and they motivate you, influence you to get to that place that they want to go. And so when I think about great leaders, I think about that vision component and how it's more than just seeing it. You got to see it, define it, communicate it ad nauseum. And that is something I've seen in great leaders.
Love that. Yeah, I mean,
that concludes our session. Thank you for coming.
That's a wrap. It's great to hear you all share those things, right? Because we're hearing, at least what I'm hearing, is a lot of different things, from the Sherpa to the guide to seeing different qualities in your team and pairing them up for different projects. But I think, Jen, you bring up a good point of, right, really it just comes down to that vision, right? And being able to be a visionary, whether that's for the future, for maybe what's in the past, and then currently with your team. So I love that. Anything else to add on y'all's end? All righty. Well, with that, we will move into our first panelist spotlight. So we'll say goodbye to Kelly and Dee Dee and Rihanna just for a few minutes. And we're going to let Jen take the floor. So Jen, I was really excited when we were preparing for this, and we were talking about, what particular portion does each person want to cover? And the reason for that is you're somebody that has always stuck out in my mind as not only a leader, but somebody who's like very true to her authentic self. And so I know for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, that's something that they struggle with is, hey, there's this idea or this vision of what somebody expects out of a leader. And how do you try to gear towards that while also being, your true authentic self? So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so very much. And that's a very nice compliment. Although what I'll share about when people say, oh gosh, you're just so authentically you, I don't have a choice. There's no off switch to me. I wasn't born with that. And so you're going to kind of hear that today. And I'm going to start with my intention. My intention is to bring my most vulnerable self to this discussion in the hopes that my experience helps someone else, because it's going to get a little ugly. So I'm going to be really, really honest about the reality of my leadership journey. My journey with leadership has not been smooth. About 5 years ago, I was ready to throw in the towel on my business. I used to call my company an intricate prison I had built for myself. And I wasn't even making money to make the quality of life more bearable. So I was really conflicted between who I was and who I thought my company needed in a leader. In my time today, I want to share with you what that conflict felt like for me and how I moved through it, because I bet some of you can relate to the conflict that you feel when who you are as a leader isn't necessarily the same as who you authentically are, how you see your authentic self. So my leadership journey starts as one of an overachieving child, a little perfectionist who loved achieving. And I had these two really unique assets that led me to being defined as a kid leader early on. So I had a dad who was losing his hearing and he always scolded us for mumbling. So I would speak really loudly and clearly. And as well, I was a really strong reader, which meant I could kind of command a room with my voice and my instruction. And also as a kid, I was like way taller than the other kids, which just naturally leads people to believe that you're older and more capable of leadership. So I caught that label leader really early, and it became a part of my identity. As a child and young adult, I took every opportunity to show I was a leader. I was in leadership programs. I was always like the kid in the front of the room. And this was really reinforced and validated a lot in my family and my environment. When I got my first post-college job, it was leasing that 300-door multifamily community Tyler mentioned in my introduction. And I wasn't surprised when 14 months after getting that first job in property management, like at 23, I was promoted to being the property manager of that property. They decided I was just so good at leasing that I would likely be a good property manager. And honestly, the very quick promotion was very much what I expected. That was my pattern. I would show up, overperform, get put in charge. That was kind of my do that in every new setting I got put in. But this is also when the problems really started. As a kid leader, I nailed it. But as a kid leader, you didn't have real people and real consequences. These were always kind of like mock leadership situations. But when I was working in a real company and with real people and real consequences, I was very tough to work with. I was viciously hard on myself and only slightly easier on other people. I was really impatient, pushy, arrogant, alienating. I presented myself as, and I was a high achieving, charismatic person who used my high energy to get results. I did not use my leadership skills. I used just really my soul, high energy abilities. And this meant that I was a really difficult problem in a team because I did the job really, really well, but I was toxic to the office. Can we all agree we've met this kind of person? If you saw the movie Election with Reese Witherspoon, she played a character called Tracy Flick. That was me. It's not a likable character. This is somebody who achieves a lot, but they're really tough to be around and tough to work with. And a couple incidents happened in 2006. My boss had to go to bat for me after my behavior with corporate leaders had them ready to fire me. I'm pretty sure what it was is they said to my leader, fire her. And she said, no, please let me save her. And they, and she did for a short time. And then in 2009 at another company, I was at that time managing a team of 21 people, and I was fired for creating a hostile work environment. Yep, I did. I did it good. And I was really confused when those things happened because I worked really, really hard and I did all the things I was supposed to do. I beat budget numbers. I outpaced leasing schedules. I got industry awards regularly. But I was confused because part of my identity was that I was a leader because my whole life I'd been told I was one. But the truth is I was a capable and ambitious person who was not a leader. I was actually pretty bad at being a leader. And that was really catching up with me because the roles I was being put in increasingly required me to have influence and not control. So in 2012, when I founded my company, I thought I really solved this like not being employable problem because now I was working for myself. So boom, I could not get fired. But you can kind of see where this is going. The problem showed up even stronger here. And the best example was in 2018. So I was 6 years into having the company. I was 1 year into an acquisition that I can say now I was very unprepared for. And I had just discovered that our bookkeeper, who worked in the office, was addicted to opioids and had stolen $30,000 from my company. And I felt the floor fall out from beneath me because I was under a lot of cumulative stress that had been building for years. And this shock of the embezzlement rocked me to my core. My team didn't know what to expect from me. I could be extremely positive or extremely negative, just like that. My emotional responses were unchecked. I was a harsh critic. I expected others to care as much as I did. And I started having really practical problems. Staff was turning over, client relations was becoming an issue, and we even lost some big clients, like time to cut expenses, kind of losing of clients at that time. And so when the acquisition was faltering and I discovered the embezzlement, I felt like such a failure. I felt like I failed everyone. Felt like I failed my team. My decisions to hire these people, set up processes this way, to supervise the way I did, had burdened us all. And it jeopardized the company. I felt like I failed my clients. They trusted me to manage their properties and their money properly, and I hadn't done that this time. And I failed my family because they were making sacrifices to give me the freedom to grow this company, and it just wasn't working. And most importantly, I felt like I couldn't trust anybody else, most definitely not myself. Because again, I was the one who created this whole situation and failed to catch it, to fix it. And it was a really dark place. And I call it a professional rock bottom. And if this had been a W-2 job, I would have quit and left the industry. You probably would never know me. I would be gone. But at that point, truly, I just wasn't convinced I could get enough money out of selling the company in the current condition it was in to make it worth it. So I was really stuck and I had to make a plan. And so my plan was to find help. In full transparency, I got a personal therapist, I got a business mentor, I implemented EOS at my company and I hired an implementer for that. And I got a couples therapist because all that turmoil at work found its way home. It wasn't like I was a monster at work and a delight at home. I was probably equally terrible in both environments. I was really unhappy with myself and everyone. So through taking these steps, I became familiar with the concept of authentic leadership. And I was really attracted to that concept because my personal core values are honesty and responsibility. So I really am like a magnet to authenticity. And I was hopeful that I could be authentically be enough as myself to be a leader. So I was really starting to notice that disconnect between who I saw myself as and who my company needed as a leader. And so there's a lot of theory out there, but I'm just going to call out the 3 tent poles that I think come out in authentic leadership, that are beginning steps. If you're feeling this conflict, I would direct you toward these steps. So they are vision, self-awareness, and self-improvement. So very simple concepts. The first one, vision, the first thing my EOS implementer worked with me on was vision. And it turns out I had a lot of vision for my company, but I had to be given permission to dream it, to write it down, to talk about it, to really paint the picture for others so that they can see it too, because your vision inspires your team, your stakeholders, and most of all, you. Because it's not easy out there. Crap's going to happen, and we need a compelling vision to get you through it. Compelling visions engage hearts and minds. They move people to action, and they change behaviors. Without a vision that your team can believe in, leading them is significantly harder because it's more like pushing versus pulling toward this attractive vision. And it takes a lot of practice. At first, I wasn't seeing the future of my company very clearly, and there was a little bit of fake it till you make it. But with practice, now it is like our premier sponsor, Second Nature. It is second nature to me. I surprise myself with statements I make easily about the future now. So if you meet me in a conference and allow me 2 seconds, I will tell you a very definitive statement about my future. It is really my vision statement. It is things I see and am making happen in the future. So now that my vision is really well defined, it gives me chills because I'm so excited, and I found that I can get my energy and the energy of my team up in support of that vision. It's really working on that and developing that vision has made me fall in love with my business again, which is so important because where I described that I was very much out of love. And without love and passion for this, I don't know why any of us are doing it. Then the next part, once I had this amazing vision, I was really motivated to get there. But the next part I had to kind of look at was my self-awareness. So I had to do that because we know that great leaders have really well-developed understandings of who they are. They know what they're great at. They know what they stink at. They notice how people react to them. And I'm not a navel gazer, but an advisor helped me see that I was the machine leading this organization. Whether or not we achieved anything or not came down to me and my ability to lead this group. And if I'm the machine that leads this company, maybe I should learn how this machine works. Because if the leader of my company was an actual machine, I would read the manual, I would know how to troubleshoot it so I could get consistent performance. So I decided to treat myself like a machine. I learned about me, I took care of me, and I adjusted the processes around me. And so with this new self-awareness, I made a lot of choices that had powerful results, but there were 2 that had really powerful, and they're so simple. So I used to think that I had this tremendous endurance for working. I used to think it was totally normal for me to get up and go to work before 6 a.m., come home after 7. I would do that kind of stuff 7 days a week for months on end. In fact, when the embezzlement happened, I did 12-hour days, 7 days a week for 5 full weeks just to clean that up. And when I started to get more self-aware, I realized that I actually have a pretty short battery for an entrepreneur. I have about a 7 to 8 hour battery. And I have a theory that I'm losing like 5 minutes a year. Like it's getting shorter and shorter every year. But after that amount of time, my work and my personality gets real bad. It gets not helpful, going in the wrong direction. When I'm tired, I'm likely to be overcritical or overreact. And it sounds really simple to say, but I just stopped overworking. And it wasn't easy, but I did work it to a point where now I rarely work more than 40 hours a week. And I almost always have 2 full days off every week where I don't do any work. Another example I would give you is I used to love the speedy buzz I would get from coffee. It just made my fingers type faster and the hours went by faster. And I love fast. Like I love speed. I love going fast. But the other effect of going fast is that you don't think much before you speak. And sometimes you have too much energy and it comes out off and it's too much. And so when I connected caffeine to how easily I offended people, I realized it had to go. And so I completely kicked caffeine 3 years ago, and I've tested it since. If I have a cup of regular coffee in the morning, by 1 p.m., my husband will say to me, "Why are you being mean to me?" that exact sentence. And he doesn't know I had the coffee. He just knows that I'm not being awesome that day. And I've tested it thinking I could get away with just a cup of coffee here and there because I do love it. But no, I can't. It's really too damaging. So what I loved about developing that self-awareness was it was like learning little hacks, little things I could do that I could know about myself that would lead to more discoveries and conclusions. So once I had that vision I was going toward, and I was really self-aware and knowing where was I falling short, where was I strong, how was I coming to this challenge, then I could work on the self-improvement stage. And, self-improvement, not a new concept. I'm sure not for you, not for me. We all know the self-help section of the bookstore. But what was new about self-improvement was taking accountability for how my behavior affected the company and the people around me. And that wasn't something that I drew the line on really easily. I really kind of had to be led to that conclusion. So it meant that I had to take my ego out of the equation and build on some really essential skills that I was lacking in. Two that I worked on that I would share with you were controlling my emotions and active listening. These are two improvements that I'm still very much actively working on, but have moved the needle substantially. And I do this with daily skill building. And just a really concrete tip, I would start every single day preparing with an intention, like I did before this little talk I'm doing. I set an intention. I prepared to say, what am I going to work on? How am I going to strengthen my emotional control and active listening skills today? Looking at my schedule, what opportunities were there going to be for me today? Practice makes perfect. But in the beginning, gosh, there were a lot more gaps than gains. We were not counting a lot of gains in the beginning, but it takes a little practice. And now I would say a couple years later, I'm getting close to calling these strengths, not there yet, but I'm getting close. And what's been really cool about doing a journey of self-improvement is sharing it with my team. I talk really honestly and transparently with them, just like I have here today, about the reality of my journey. And I let them see me as an example, talk candidly about the special skills I try to maximize and the limitations that I have to work around. So I shared a lot of negative truths about myself as a leader today, and I can do that because I can enthusiastically tell you that I don't struggle with a feeling of being inauthentic as a leader today. And I'm much, much more effective now. I have strong, honest relationships with my team and my clients. I feel like I can tell them the truth, admit my mistakes, and ask for help. Our turnover is so much lower. We're attracting higher quality talent to the team, and we are really crushing our goals. I don't have the magic answer, but I do know that many of us struggle with this disconnect, this gap between who we are authentically and the leader we need to show up as. And what I learned is that this disconnect for me arose from a lack of understanding of who I am, what I bring to my company, and what my vision is and why it's important. So back to that intention, I said at the beginning, I brought you my vulnerable self, my story, and it's my hope that if you see yourself in any of this, that you take inspiration from how I've handled it and maybe some tips about where to start. Toward that end, we're going to get ready to do breakout rooms. And in the breakout rooms, we're going to post in the chat 5 questions. And this is a quick self-assessment for your authentic leadership skills, really focusing on vision, self-awareness, and self-improvement. So they're just 5 questions, and the goal is you're to look at them, and if you can answer them quickly, if you're very solid on the answers, it's very likely you have strong self-awareness, strong self-improvement skills, and strong vision. But if you're floundering a little bit, that's really the sign that, hey, this might be an area of improvement for me. So I hope in your breakouts, you'll talk about your personal answers to these questions and whether it brings up anything for you as you go through them.
Perfect. Thanks, Jen. I got to say, I feel like you are just if you look up self-awareness in the dictionary, I think your picture is absolutely in there. So,
well, when you have some of the limitations I do, it's best that you get a head start on it.
I love it. So guys, I just posted in the chat some of the questions. I will repost them once you get into your breakout rooms. But we'll be in groups of 4 to 5. We'll have about 9 or 10 minutes in each room. And just make sure that you hit on those. If you feel like you're going too long, we just want to make sure that we hear from every person in the breakout room. And then we'll bring you back and we'll have some of you guys share like some of your top takeaways that came from the groups. So with that, I'm going to open the rooms. You'll see a little blue box that pops up. You'll have to accept to move into the room. And we'll see you back here in just a few minutes. All right. Well, welcome back. Hopefully you guys had some good conversation in your rooms. Hey, listen, before we switch into our next panelist, would love to hear a couple report outs or shares from the groups that you were in. We've got time for a couple. So like I said, would love to hear from a few groups on one of two things, either what was the main takeaway that you guys shared in your group, or what was something that Jen shared that you really, really appreciated. So you can, if you know how, you can raise your digital hand and we'll bring you up to the main stage, so to speak, so you can share. You can find that by clicking the reactions button on the bottom of your screen, and you just click raise hand. Like we said, we'd love to hear from one or two groups. It looks like Kelly, I'm coming to you first.
Well, I tried to give an opportunity for someone in my group, but and Kathy, I'm going to call on you, but I don't know if you want to speak or if I can speak for you.
I'll speak.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, great. So I was talking to our breakout room about Jen and the fact that it was like listening to my story. I feel like I'm very toxic to our office, and not because I'm a bad person, but I'm the one accountant for 800 doors, and I'm busy all the time. So I don't listen. I know, like our operations manager said, do you notice how Kathy always puts her purse in her chair so nobody walks in and sits down? Like and I don't mean it like that at all, right? It's just, I'm busy and that's who I am. So I was telling them that one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start every day with an intention, and I'm going to really be mindful of how I'm listening and how I'm talking to people. And I was telling them, we have a great boss, and I didn't get this out, but he does every other week coaching with an outside coach for us. Plus he meets with our team leaders every week. Mark, our owner, meets with us, our broker, he meets with us once a week with the team leaders to like really work on his team leaders, like who we are, what's our vision. And so this has been so far already so great for me. I just am really happy to be here today and get some great stuff from all the rest of you.
Love that. Thanks, Kathy, for being the first one to share. And I love the intentionality of the day, and just making sure that you're getting off on the right foot. I love hearing that. So thanks, Kathy. All right, let's see. I think we've got time for one or two more. Anybody else? Remember, you're just raising your little digital yellow hand, and we'll bring you up. Going once. Going twice. Oh, here we go. Amanda, I'm coming to you.
Awesome. Thank you. So there were a lot of questions. Obviously, it was going to be really difficult for us to speed talk, no matter the auctioneer experience, to get through all these questions, but they're great questions. So thank you for posting those, Tyler. So I'm in Boise with Apex Property Management, and we're a small company, but it's just me and 2 employees. And we started a process of overhauling all of our systems and softwares right before, and all of our management agreements and everything, lease agreements, right before, the beginning of 2020. So it was a massive project. We already started rolling. We had to keep moving the ball as we went into some chaos around the world. And we've come out as a team on the other side with a lot of pride in what we were able to accomplish. We've all been working on some serious personal growth. I have a history with holistic nutrition and natural health. So I want to connect with people, and I want to make sure that they understand where I'm coming from, understand what the expectations are and are able to eloquently express their needs so that we can create a copacetic relationship and partnership in managing properties, but also for our team, like now the question is, okay, here we are, we've overcome a lot, we've learned a lot. How can we lead each other into a new kind of world, a new perspective, a new way of looking at things, and a new way of being able to communicate? And that's, I guess, the ultimate question right now for so many people. How do we communicate more efficiently?
I love that, Amanda. Thanks for sharing. I love the aspect of like the team vision, right? Like there is one thing about you being the leader and you seeing the vision, but it's a totally different ball game when you can get everybody else tied into that same vision and it be co-created versus just like from the top. So I love that. Thank you. All right. Well, with that, I think we will bring up our next panelist. So I'm going to go ahead and add her to the screen. And Rihanna, I'm excited about this, right? Because we've talked about, hey, how do you find that balance between the leader that people expect and the leader that you want to be in your true self? I think the next, layer to this, to kind of peel back this onion and to get deeper into this recipe, is for you personally, like, how do you find the balance between being a leader in your professional life and then also being a leader in your personal life? And if you've got a couple examples and anything you could share there, that would be great.
Yeah, so one of the things that, and actually in my introduction, I want to just kind of dig deeper into my background. So I owned a property management business, a real estate business for many years, and sold it a few years ago. And it was a very successful multi-million-dollar business. We did residential property management as well as association property management, and also had a separate division for design and construction and maintenance. And so running an operation like that for me was a lot. And during that time, I was burning out and wasn't recognizing the signs of burning out. And it took me until after selling the business for me to realize that I was completely burnt out. It wasn't just stress, it was total burnout. It took a toll on my health. It took a toll on my life, my personal life. And after that, I went through a journey of just kind of rediscovery and rebalance and reprioritization, and really tried to figure out how I could do a better job of taking care of myself. And it started first with really trying to understand why I got to the place that I got to. And that was my belief system. And I didn't realize that I had the foundation of just kind of burning myself out. I was kind of this born hustler, right? I was born to an immigrant family. And so when you come here from another country, it's all about trying to survive. And so having 3 jobs was so normal for people, for my family members. And so you were never sitting idle, you were always working. And so that kind of hustle culture was kind of ingrained in me very early on. And for me, money meant success. So what I was always aiming for was to make more money, to grow a bigger business. And the other side of that was self-care was selfish. So taking care of myself and looking out for myself was kind of frowned upon. And if you are like me, I have a mother who, her way of expressing love was to bend over backwards and give you everything that you needed, right? So if anything that you needed, even if it were out of her control, she would figure out how to get it to you. That's what love was for her. And so I grew up with this idea that if I was looking out for me, looking out for number one, then I was being very selfish. So I had to understand where I came from and that belief system in order for me to really figure out how to fix it and how to find that balance. So, in my self-discovery, and I recommend this, to anyone, I took a course called Life Book. And it was an opportunity for me to really, I'm such a goal-oriented person. So I set some goals for myself, but it was really like, what is your belief system? And let's shake that belief system up a little bit. And then let's create some goals that are realistic for who you want to be and the future that you want to have. So I was doing that. So I created some new goals that made sense for me and the life that I wanted to live, despite my belief system, despite my previous belief system. And so a lot of that was about taking care of myself and really being able to spend time with people I loved, people I cared about, my family, and really trying to have a better balance of work and of life. And being present with my family when I was with them, and being completely engrossed into my business when I was working. So it was very much a discovery process and really trying to figure things out. And I feel like it's not something that stops. It's something that continues to go over time. And as you grow and as you move into different iterations of your life, as you move into different chapters of your life, you're going to need to recalibrate what self-care is. I did a presentation at NARPM National last year, which I will provide some information for you guys, but I told people to create what I called a self-care tool bag. And that included habits that you need to create into your routine so that you are always thinking about how to take care of yourself. So those habits were daily habits that you can do every day, things that you could do every week, things that you could do every month, things that you can do every quarter, and then things that you can do every year. And in addition to those kind of habits, there are things that you need in your tool bag to help you when things are chaotic. So, in property management, things ebb and flow, and, times change and things get busier. And so you might need to take more time for yourself during those times. And then there are times when you have that one client who drives you crazy, drives you insane. And as soon as you see them calling you, or as soon as you see their name pop up in your inbox, your whole body freezes, right? Those type of emergency situations, it's always good to be able to say, okay, these are the tools that I'm going to use in order to tackle those situations. Whether it's, I'm going to take a walk around the block before I even respond to that email. I don't even know what's in the email. I'm just going to walk around and do some deep breathing and then come back to it. So just really trying to create some tools. But today, what I want to share with you is something that I've kind of recently discovered, and I want to send you guys a worksheet. So if you can send me a text message, I'm going to put my phone number in the chat. And if you can text me your email address, I'm going to email you a worksheet that I'm going to have you guys work on during the breakout. So this is something that I recently put together that I thought would be helpful for me, especially when you're trying to figure out how best to use your time. One of the things that I committed to myself after I sold my business was to be a lot more intentional with my time and my energy, and to have more balance in my life. And I thought that that was, more than anything, the most important thing for me, is to really take care of myself and be very intentional about how I spend my time. And on this journey, I've done a number of things, whether it's, I learned yoga, which is not something that I loved before, but I got quarantined with my sister and had the opportunity to learn yoga because she was a yoga instructor. So I learned the benefits of the breathing and the exercise and the practice. And so that's something that I created for myself as a commitment that I was going to give to myself. But one of the things that I realize is really important is really being mindful about where you spend your time and give your energy. And this is clients, this is employees, this is friends, this is relatives. I think it's so important for you to think about where you give your time. And one of so many mistakes that I made when I had my property management business was, one, hiring the wrong people. Two, like taking on the wrong clients. And I think we all are guilty about that and we don't realize that. But one of the things that you can do is give yourselves opportunity to get out. So if you are in a 1-year contract and you realize that you don't want to work with that client anymore, you have a 1-year contract. And at that 1-year time, being able to say, I don't want to work with you anymore. So giving yourselves opportunity to get out of that relationship. Same thing with an employee. So when you hire an employee, being able to say, okay, you're under a 90-day probationary period. And at 90 days, I'm going to evaluate whether or not this is a good relationship. So you give yourself an opportunity to get out. So the worksheet that I sent to you guys has a number of questions on it. And these are questions that you can use for whoever, whether it's your clients, whether it is your family members, whether it is your employees. I think making sure that you can assess where you're putting your energy and where you're spending your time. I think sometimes we tend to spend time with angry people more than we spend time with the people that are our best clients. We have clients who love us, who take care of us, who spend a lot of time pouring into us because they see the value that we bring. And then we spend our time on the people that are angry because they're angry with us and we want to make up for it. So being able to really recalibrate and shift that energy so that you're spending time with the people who are going to give you back that positive energy. So what I sent to you is what I call an energy ROI filter. So what is your return on investment for the energy that you're giving? And it's a list of questions that I've put together that I think are going to be really helpful. And some of the questions are really so that you can evaluate whether or not that person is a good fit for you and you are a good fit for that person. So a question such as, are your goals aligned? Whether that's an employee, whether that's a friend, whether that's a client, are you on the same page? Do you feel like you are able to offer what that person needs? And I think that sometimes we simplify and say, oh, well, I can do property management and they need property management, so we're aligned, but that's not actually correct. How you do your business and the things that you do and the service that you provide and how you provide that service may not be a good match for the person that you want to take on as a client. And you'll notice that because you get into constant conflict. So if that person's always angry, it's probably because you're not able to provide the service that they need to get from you. So really being able to evaluate that relationship and say, is this a good match? Is this a good fit? And then saying, okay, it's not a good fit, then I need to move on and let them know that this is not a good fit and I need to move on. Does the person understand the value that I bring to their life? I think we get so caught up in being able to provide a service that we don't really understand that they may not see that service as a true value. They may not appreciate that value. And if that's the case, then again, it's a mismatch of goals. So do they understand the value that I bring? And do they fully appreciate that value? Because you're doing this because you want to do this, you want to help improve people's lives. And if they don't feel that and they don't feel like they're receiving that value from you, then it's not a good relationship to continue spending your time. The other part of it is, how do I communicate that value? What do I need to do in order to make sure that they understand what I'm doing for them behind the scenes? So there's a ton that they may not see. There's a lot of, you're that middleman, right? So there's a lot of back and forth negotiation between you and the owner and you and the tenant. And they may not see all of that. And I think in the past, that was fine. And I think a lot of landlords and investors were happy with the fact that you kept them out of the day-to-day. But I think it's time for us to shift and really start telling our story about the value that we're bringing to people. Because if they don't see our value, then they start to believe that they can do it themselves. And that's the last thing we want. We don't want to lose clients that way. We want them to understand what we do on a daily basis, and we want them to understand the value that they bring. So figuring out how to communicate that value, I think, is going to be really important. And then, do they actually respond with appreciation? So if you're pouring into them and you're giving to them and you're giving them value, are they responding in kind? Are they saying, thank you so much for all that you do? Thank you so much for your hard work. Now, not everyone's going to be completely emotive, but they should at least be appreciative. So they should be able to at least say that, yes, thank you, you're doing a great job and I really appreciate that. And giving them opportunities and asking them whether or not they are happy with the services that you're offering. So being able to just do a quick check-in with people and see that, you know, you're still delivering the service that you intended to deliver, and you're communicating that value and they're appreciative of that. I think all of those, and these are, I mean, I have a ton of questions. So, you know, definitely look over the questions, but one of the things that I want you to realize is, and just kind of my closing point is, when you really consider balance, it's really about how do you put your energy into something that's going to give you back that positive energy, because you will be filled with more positivity when you pour positivity in people that's going to give you back that positive energy. So you're going to need to do a real assessment of where you need to be spending your time and energy. And that's going to help you really figure out what is a good balance. And, you know, we have to work and we have to spend time with our family, but we can pick and choose how we spend that time and who we spend it with. And if, just like I said, on the personal side, friends and relatives, like if you have relatives in your life that are very negative and drain you every time you spend time with them, then you need to recalibrate and say, you know, that person is a relative. I don't have to spend a lot of time with them, but during those times, I'm going to keep it limited so that you can actually pour your energy into the people that care about you the most. So really consider that and really try to figure out what is the best balance for you. And there's no perfect formula for it. It's really just about making sure that you're getting what you need from both work and from your family. So when we go into breakout rooms, what you're going to be doing is you're going to look over the questions that I sent to you and really pick and choose the questions that really resonate that you can use in your everyday. So talk through them, look at the questions and just try to evaluate what makes the most sense and how you can take those questions and really evaluate your relationships with the people that you work with the people that you work for, and with the people that you're related to, and the people that you love in your life.
Love it. Thanks, Rihanna. You guys should all see a little blue box popping up, and we will reconnect here in about 8 minutes. All right. Welcome back. So I do have to say this. I took a second while you guys were in the rooms and was going through the sheet. That thing is impressive. I think a lot of inventory there, a lot of stuff to take into account and to take account of. So before we move into Kelly's portion, I would love to hear from one or two people, whether it was your favorite question that was on the worksheet, favorite nugget that Rihanna shared, or anything that you're just feeling called to share at the moment.
I like one she said, do people value your time? So that goes a long way to see. And then the coachable part, because every landlord is not coachable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question to ask. I didn't see who just spoke up. If you want to drop your name in the chat. There you go. Monty, we appreciate you, my man. What else do we have out there? You want to raise your little yellow hand, or you can go ahead and speak up.
That's something that stuck with us was when you start to see you know, when you start to get that pit in your stomach, when you see that phone number or whatever, it's probably already time to let them go. They're probably already sapping that energy. You're probably already burnt out from that person. And like Monty just said, you know, they're not coachable. If you've been working hard to try to make the relationship work and it's not gonna, it's probably time to just cut ties and go your separate ways.
Yeah. Dig that.
Yeah.
A little bit of tough truth there. Thanks,
It's hard.
Christine.
It's hard.
Dee Dee, I'm coming to you next.
So it's, you know, Chrissy mentioned doing this too with her company. With us, we make it a habit every year at the end of the year as a gift to ourselves around Christmas time to fire the clients that we least like, that give us that feeling in the pit of our stomach whenever we see their email or their call. So it's like a gift to ourselves to let those people go.
100%.
Love that. Yeah, it's interesting to me. I appreciate it seems like there's a common thread, and I'm curious to see if you guys are picking up on this also, between what Jen shared about authenticity and what Rihanna shared about that balance between professional and personal life. It seems like the authenticity part, it's more self-awareness and being honest with yourself about where you're at. And I love what Rihanna brought to the table, which is more outside focused awareness and being honest about where you're at with the other relationships in your life. So great section, great content there. So with that, we want to keep sticking and moving. Kelly, I'm looking for you. We're going to bring you up for our next portion here, and I think this is going to get a little interesting. And the reason for that is, you know, a lot of stuff we started out talking about kind of the internal game. We shifted into talking more about the external game, and I think you're going to kind of bring us home here. And the topic really, or the question is, like, when it comes to the team, or when it comes to talking with owners, or even talking from residents, how important are the skills of listening and communication to you in your business?
Well, thanks, Tyler. So when I was thinking about putting this talk together and appearing here today, and I'm just super excited to be here, I thought, well, I have been an instructor for, I do breakout sessions. I've done other type of things. And I always put a PowerPoint together, and I thought, well, I'll just put a little PowerPoint together. And I thought, wait, I'm talking about listening and communication. I felt a little contradictory to throw screenshots at you and not necessarily focus on maybe my facial expressions, or you can't see my hand movements, or all of those things, because communication and listening is all about tone, the micro expressions that I'm seeing around on the screen today, eye contact. So thank you to those who are putting your screen on if you can, your word choice, and so much more. So it's not really about pictures and screen sharing. So here I am flying solo. Look, Mom, no hands, with no PowerPoint. So when I was a kid, my mom often told me that I have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and that was to listen twice as much as I talk. Well, like any typical kid, it took me many years to really heed her advice. I used to think that everybody wanted, actually, I used to believe that everyone needed to hear my every idea, my every thought, my every opinion. And as I grew up, I learned about and studied leadership. It finally sunk in that Mom was really right. And when we think of communication, we often, immediately think of imparting those thoughts, those ideas, those opinions, like kind of like what we were talking about earlier about being a good leader, stepping aside or guiding and directing. And when we think about being a good leader, it's about, do we need to actually impart our ideas and opinions, or do we need to bring people to those ideas and opinions? Like we talked about too, about if your vision is out there, let them come to it. And so today I want to talk a lot about the most vital ingredient in sticking with the master chef and the recipes and all that. The most vital ingredient to successful communication is really listening. We've all heard the saying that words have power, but sometimes the lack of words are most effective. And if you think about it, there's 26 letters in the English language, and the infinity number, I know it isn't really literally infinity, amount of words that can be combined with those 26 letters. Sometimes the most effective communication is silence. Stephen R. Covey said, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. And that's when you're silent and listening, you're not necessarily listening to reply, you're listening to understand. So I wanted to share, I know a lot of us, probably all of us have had situations where you've had a client who isn't happy with your services for whatever reason. And it's not necessarily one of those ones that you want to gift yourself at the end of the year. You want to work through it. You want to accomplish, you want to achieve, you want your team to come to a point where they can accomplish and achieve as well. We had a client who, for some reason, their kitchen sink kept leaking. And this started back like 2 years ago, 2019, 2020. And so we'd send the technician out. Technician thought they fixed it. 2 months later, tenant calls, tenant sink is still leaking. Fast forward about $1,500 later, just recently, we realized it was groundwater that was coming up because we're in Seattle and there's a lot of groundwater. There's a lot of sky water, a lot of water everywhere. But this particular house was kind of in a gulch, and there was groundwater coming up through the kitchen sink. So after several communications with the maintenance team and the property manager and so on, I got involved. They are not happy, and I needed to get involved. They wanted a phone call, they wanted a meeting. That's what we did. So we were on the phone, and I'm not exaggerating, 90 minutes. And about 45 minutes in, I knew the whole time they were frustrated, but I felt like they were trying to establish where we made mistakes. And I felt myself starting to get defensive. And this was a phone call. It wasn't a Teams call or a Zoom call. So there was no eyeball to eyeball, but I could sense my own physical well-being getting heated, like my heart rate was going up. I could hear my words were a little more forceful. And so I did two things. The first thing I did, and I don't know, again, we're talking about vulnerability. The first thing I did, I started stalking him on Facebook and Instagram. I wanted to find a human connection. I wanted to find a person in this conversation that I knew was similar to me. I knew that they were human. They weren't just somebody attacking my team, attacking my business, attacking our practices, that they were human and they were trying to get something resolved. So that was the first thing I did. And I saw pictures of them with their family. I saw pictures of them, with their friends and quotes. So while we were having this conversation, and my maintenance manager was on the call as well. So it wasn't like I wasn't communicating with them. I was listening, but I was also trying to get that connection in there. The second thing I did is I took assessment of my physical response to the words and to the conversation. And I took a step back. And I started to just simply listen, to kind of open up, literally open up my heart, because I could, after seeing that they were human, listen to what they had to say. And I heard this frustration. And eventually we got to the point where they were able to say, we have lost complete trust in your team because the response time hasn't been there. Now, our company policy is to respond by the close of the following business day. For whatever reason, the maintenance team wasn't doing it. They didn't have the information, didn't feel it was necessary, got bogged down with other projects. Whatever it was, their trust had been lost. And once I realized what the core issue was, I was able to move forward with the conversation. I honestly pulled these people, and it came out in my voice because the team, my maintenance manager and the maintenance coordinator that were also on the call said later on, they could really hear in my voice how disappointed I was for them. That I was just shocked that they had taken statistically, and it had taken us 2 weeks to reply to their emails. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't do business with a company that took that long either. And I was able to relate to them. And just by listening and hearing what they had to say, I was able, like I said, to kind of move forward and to empathize with them. And it wasn't until I shifted my focus of becoming defensive and trying to prove to them that we were right, that I could advance to a solution and a resolution. And if you think about it, 70% of how our message is received is based on our tone of voice. So when we are talking, I do this with my dog a lot. I don't have little kids at home. It works really well with little kids that haven't really mastered the English language yet. They're just learning. You use a high-pitched, sweet voice, and your dog will just come right over, wag their tail, just be all on your lap, all that stuff. But if you use really sweet words with a stern tone of voice, they respond differently. So think about that the next time when you are listening and wanting to respond, that 70% of your message is about your tone and 30% on your actual words. So the next thing about the situation is considering your audience. Phew, that's a mouthful. So moving on a little bit to a little bit of the next, a couple takeaways for you that I hope you get today. As in any recipe, not all the ingredients are considered equal. So you wouldn't substitute salt with sugar or lemon for chocolate chips. And in the same way, your means of communication should not be substituted. So they serve different purposes and have different levels of urgency. So talking about some of the different means of communication, or as I like to call it, connection. Every point of communication is a connection. So in that, relationship will be essential. So we, since the pandemic has been here, we don't get the opportunity for in-person communication anymore or in-person connections anymore. That eyeball to eyeball is one of the most intimate and valuable ways to communicate. So we do video chats. In the remote world that we live in and we work in, it's often the only way you can get that connection, that type of connection, that high level connection. And one of the things I do in my office frequently is I will, instead of just, we use Teams chat a lot. Well, that's the platform we use is Teams chat. And instead of just chatting somebody a question, probably 2 to 3 times a week, I make sure I check in with everyone that's working remotely. We have quite a big remote team. Some of them live locally, but aren't coming into the office for whatever health reasons they have. So, but they're still working. We have a lot of remote people throughout the country and also internationally. So I will just hit the video call button and make that eyeball to eyeball connection. And I think of it as like, I guess in the olden days when we'd walk into someone's office and ask them a question and you'd have that connection there. So for me, that's what I do. I think for the team member, when I'm calling, it helps them feel like they're part of the team. You know, these people are sitting in their homes, isolated. Maybe they don't get out throughout the day simply because they don't have anywhere to go. I know the pandemic is hopefully winding down, but still they're working from home, they're working in a silo, and there isn't that feeling of connection that you might get if you're going to an office or interacting with team members on a regular basis. The other thing I like to do when I'm calling them, if it's for a specific purpose, is just kind of check in and say, how are you doing? You know, I remember you said, you were going to go cut down your Christmas tree last weekend. How'd that go? Did you get it done? That kind of stuff. Follow up on a personal level. So that to me is creating that relationship and that connection. The next level would be a phone call. So when you want tone and context to be in the conversation, don't send an email, pick up the phone. Use a phone call when how you say something is just as important as the content of the message. So how you say it, we've all heard that in emails, there is no tone. It's so difficult to impart the actual tone that you want in an email. If you need a quick reply to to move a project forward, pick up the phone or schedule an in-person meeting. The phone calls can be so much, they add so much value these days, especially because I think before the pandemic and before 2020, email was fine. All of that was good because we still were having a lot of interaction in person. That's gone by the wayside. So the phone call has kind of taken the next best place there. And I think we don't use it because I guess maybe we're just not used to it, but it's really a valuable form of communication when we're trying to establish that connection. So moving next to the next level would be email, and that's reactive by design, but it typically you're needing a response from someone when you send an email. One of the things I want to caution you about using email, don't hide behind an email when a phone call would have been more effective. So I think of this, especially if you have something negative to impart, like, that refrigerator didn't get repaired, and now we need to replace it for way more money, or whatever that bad news may be. If you need to impart bad news, I strongly recommend a phone call if possible, or a video chat, and don't hide behind the keyboard. So one of the things when you're looking at email, use the email when you have action items. So if you have something you want somebody to do, put it in an email. If the message is going to be more than a paragraph in an email, use the phone. It may not be the best channel. How many times have we opened an email and just seen a whole bunch of words and shut it right away because it's way too many words at one time. So or big paragraphs. Dot points or bullet points are your friends in emails, and it's way better for people to read if there's a little more white space. It's kind of like that listening point where you have more white space, more silence is easier to understand and comprehend and absorb. If you need documentation of the communication, if you've made a phone call and need to follow up, do it with an email. That's the best way to do it. We need a lot of written communication. We need a lot of written documentation, and that's the best way to do it. If you're going to escalate an issue that has been started in an email, don't do it in the email. That's when you want to pick up the phone and then follow it up with an email. The one thing too that I am, kind of putting these notes together and everything, I write every email as though it's going to be made public knowledge all over the world. I do not write anything that I do not want, my favorite people in the whole world to see. I do not write an email that will disparage someone else. If I need to get some of that steam off, I will pick up a video call or I'll chat a friend, I will not put it in an email. Imagine every email you write will be made public record. So just don't put it in an email unless you can say it to the world. And then just moving on to text, communicating text, you're using text for communication is great if you have a quick message to send. The maintenance tech is going to be there between 9 and noon today, or your lease renewal is ready for you on your portal. Text can get lost easily. So we don't use it very often. We use it on our data platform, which is great. We can keep it, but it's really hard to follow up and to remember what you need to do when you get something in a text. So I don't know of any phone system or any text system right now. And if you do, put it in the chat that will help you either forward or unread or make it a task or something like that. But if there's follow-up and conversation happening that's more important than just a quick reminder, don't use the text, use an email or a phone call. They're convenient, but they're not the highly professional level of communication. One thing I will say though, in our tenant base here in our area, texting seems to be the preferred means of communication. But once we get into the more serious things like have you put in your application or here's how you do this, that kind of thing, we do transfer the conversation over to email and let them know. And then lastly, I do use, which many of you may or may not use, the old-fashioned Pony Express United States Postal Service. I find this really effective when you handwrite a note to somebody. It doesn't have to be anything lengthy. Just use a little note card and from time to time use a pen and paper, and it just goes miles, especially nowadays when people just don't do it anymore. It's probably my favorite channel of communication. It's just not as effective. So I like to drop notes to my team to their 1 year. I haven't done it in a while. I actually wrote handwritten notes to the families of the people on the team. And I thanked them for their support of whoever, I was sending, the person in our office, and how much their support of that person made a difference, not only in our lives, but in the people that we serve. And that was, I felt really good about it. I didn't get a lot of feedback on it, but I felt good about it. So we're going to be moving into our groups here, but it's worth repeating that the most vital ingredient in our recipe of leadership communication is that most people do not listen with the intent to understand. Most listen with the intent to reply. And our conversation prompt for today is that, the story I told you about the Pearsons, we've all had interactions and conversations when we wish we would have done something or said something differently. think about what that is for you and share that with your small group. And before we break out into our groups, I want to leave you with a couple of quotes, or a quote from Brene Brown. She's one of my favorite leadership gurus, and I've read a lot of her stuff and learned a lot from her. That a brave leader is someone who says, I see you, I hear you, and I don't have all the answers right now, but I'm going to keep listening and asking questions. And by showing up today, you are tapping into your strength to listen and become a better leader. Thank you.
Love it, Kelly. Thank you so much. Blue boxes, guys, are on the way. Luckily, you guys made it back from the hidden depths of the Zoomosphere. So let's do our normal routine. Would love to hear a couple key takeaways in terms of communication that either you took away from Kelly or you covered in your group. So I'm just looking for the little yellow hands.
Nobody wants to talk. So in our group, I'll just talk because I don't mind talking. Our group, we were discussing the different styles of communications our employees have. Some employees, and I'm just going to break it down very bluntly, like some employees, especially maybe the older generation, are very willing to talk on the phone and talk at length. And, what could be a 10-second conversation turns into 45 minutes. Whereas maybe some of our younger employees are quick, send a text, get it done. And they're both labeled something, like maybe the older employee may be labeled, she just takes up too much time. Whereas the younger employee may be labeled, they're just too blunt. So having to bridge that gap can be a tough time can be tough at times. So that was one of the things that we talked about. And another one was something that my husband told me. Now, he's a brilliant businessman, so I listen to him sometimes, was if you have to go back and forth more than 2 times in an email, then it's time to pick up the phone and call somebody. So he's wise. He's a wise boy. So those are 2 kind of big things that we chatted about and we liked in our little conversation.
Love that, Christina. Yeah, it's a great distinction, right? There comes a time where we've got to shift the form of communication. So I dig that.
Hey, Tyler, I'm curious, Chrissy, when you're talking about the different types based on, maybe what people are used to, are both of them just as effective in their communication, do you think?
It was Megan who was talking about it. So if she wants to chime in and kind of explain her 2 little scenarios she had, that would be fantastic.
Hi, Megan.
Hi.
Sorry, I called you.
I know, dang it. Anywho.
Hot
So
seat.
it's effective for some and not for others. So what I'm learning to do is to put my more needy clients that need that hand holding and that nurturing there with that one property manager, and then taking those that don't want to hear from us, just do your job and send me my money every month. Those are perfect for my younger girl who's the very direct. But at the same time, I'd asked the small group, how do you I know you can't teach these different styles, but I do, what did Angela say? A chameleon. You do need to be somewhat of a chameleon in this business so that you can kind of adapt. I mean, maybe my one property manager isn't going to be with us, all the time. So the other one needs to learn how to, we've got to be able to go back and forth or somewhere in the middle, bridge the gap.
Bridging the gap. Thanks, Megan. All right, Kathy, I'm coming to you to wrap us up. Kathy, I think you're muted.
I kind of just wanted to talk about the environment that we're actually in right now. It seems like since we went into this whole COVID period, that the people have gotten so much more hostile out there that we don't want to have phone conversations with them, right? And then like Kelly was saying, the problem with that is we all put tone into a text or an email. And I know we all do it. And so that's where I think a phone call is super important. We're experiencing a really hard time right now because we have 800 doors and one maintenance tech because we cannot find people to come to work. And he is just getting hammered. And so we're finding that it's a really tough out there. But I also learned something a long time ago when I was selling real estate. We used to say, eat your frogs first. So just come in the morning and deal with the stuff you got to deal with. And then it seems like the rest of the day is just a super improvement. So I'm Kelly, I really appreciate your mentioning of the phone calls because we avoid them like the plague. We look over here at our caller ID and just, no, I know what they're going to ask me and I'm not going to deal with it. So I'm going to start dealing with it by phone because I think it is a much more better form of communication.
Well, and Kathy, one of the things we talked about in our small group, and even with that call with the client, the Pearsons, by the end of the conversation, we were joking and laughing and had built rapport from the beginning. And so you have that opportunity to kind of repair the relationship. If it is bad news, you have that opportunity to build rapport and gain trust. And I call it filling the love cup because we need to fill that love cup with everyone, because at one day you're going to pull love out of that cup and how much is going to be left. And that's where we had with them. We had just sucked all the love out of their little love cup and hadn't been putting anything in. So it was an opportunity for us to do that. And I'm hoping that we'll cross our fingers. They're a great client. When they trust us, it's just a matter of building that back up. So yeah.
Yeah. And there's something so important about putting ourselves in the other person's shoes. Like what would I put up with and what wouldn't I, right? So yeah, thank you.
Seriously, when I said to them, I wouldn't do business with a company that didn't get back to me for 2 weeks, it was like a big, huge sigh of relief for them. Like, now somebody gets me. Now you get what I'm going through. So yeah.
Right.
And I just wanted to add to that. That's basically what it comes down to, is that clients, owner clients and resident clients just want to be heard. You know, as you stated, we're in a different time right now and people are going through a lot. And we may not be able to walk in their shoes or fully understand what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, but just to give them a little bit of your time to hear them out and possibly find a resolution that is just going to make their day just a little bit better goes a long ways in this industry.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Thank you guys for sharing. All right. Well, with that, we're going to shift into our last panelist of the day before we get into some rapid fire questions and wrap up on with a question that I think everybody is very, very curious about. It does have to do with cookies. So just a little preview there. But I do want to bring up our last panelist, Miss Dee Dee Lee. One thing I didn't mention about Dee Dee in her bio earlier was that Dee Dee, you know, as well as being a great property manager, fantastic runner, she can also put away some oysters. I had the opportunity to do that with her last weekend in Charleston. But Dee Dee, excited to get into this topic for you to bring us home. And I think it's really the one thing that we haven't hit on yet. And there's really two parts to it. One is time management. So whether that's both professional and personal, but then the other big one in being a great leader is delegation. So curious to get your thoughts on that, and I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Tyler. One of the reasons I run is so I could eat. So of course, I'm a big oyster eater. I actually had a quick presentation, PowerPoint presentation prepared for this, but after Kelly's presentation, and where she talked about, look, we're just gonna do eye contact and have a conversation. I told Rebecca, don't worry about it. I'm also gonna run with my hands off the steering wheel. So for those of you that don't know me, I am a single mom. I have 3 kids and run a property management business. We do single family, we do HOAs, we do Airbnbs, short-term rentals also. And then I also have a side business doing destination dating right now. That's on pause because of COVID, but that's like my passion project. And so, as a mom, I also carpool my kids to and from school. So it's about 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. And then also trying to feed them, right? Getting healthy food on the table for them, getting them to sports. All three of them play sports right now. My daughter is in regular softball and travel softball. So you've for those of you that have kids in softball, baseball, you know how crazy the practice schedules are. And my two boys are also in baseball. So time is a big topic for me. In this presentation, I hope to challenge the words time management and procrastination. And, that's my goal, is to challenge those words for you. So in 2019, I spoke at the broker owner conference about my story. And I shared a little bit there that my wake-up call, it's a lot like, Jen Rubin's story. There's always a point where you get a wake-up call in your career. Mine happened when I was 30. I had 2 kids at that point, toddlers, and I was running my property management business on my own. I was working 16 hours a day. When you're the sole person running your business, you're doing every single thing. You're running during the day and then you're answering emails at night. I mean, when you talk about burnout, like that was my burnout. And how did I realize I had a burnout? I had heart palpitations all of a sudden. I was 30 years old and I had heart palpitations like all throughout the day. So I was like, oh my goodness, I'm about to have a heart attack one day, So I finally went to the doctor, and the doctor said, there is nothing wrong with your health. Nothing's wrong with your heart. The problem is you're too stressed out. So how does that happen? How does that work? He said, well, you work during the day, like you have a high stress job. So your body runs on adrenaline all day long. And at the end of the day, when you're finally winding down, there's no place for that adrenaline to go. So then your heart is overcompensating all of this adrenaline that's in your body. And that's where the heart palpitations come from. So I asked him, well, what can I do? Because I can't slow down. I have to keep working. He said, well, you have to build exercising into your routine. And that was his answer. So I said, okay, now I'm going to try to find time to build exercise into my routine, because I don't want to die an early death. And I want to be there for my kids. I want to have enough energy left. So, and then the other thing is being a good leader, right? I had a conversation with Sarah Laidler, who is, I call her my soul sister in property management, because we have very similar ideas about company culture and what we talk a lot about leadership as well. One of the questions she asked me was, hey, Dee, have you ever written down your own job description? So that's a really good, question. So we did that little exercise with each other, and she wrote something in her job description that says, one of my job responsibilities is to take care of myself so that I can stay clear-headed. And so that when my team needs me to make a call on something, make a big decision, like an emergency happens, who do they go to? They go to you, they go to the owner, they go to the broker to make that the decision. If you're not clear-headed, if your head is like, if you're so crazy busy all the time, you're not going to be able to make that clear decision. So taking care of yourself is actually a part of our job responsibility. So that really resonated with me. So how do I take care of myself, right? And that was all of these things kind of came together, and I learned a couple of things throughout my process of breaking down myself, a lot like what Jen said. Treat yourself like a machine. Look at what you do from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, and you figure out parts of what you do during the day where you could find efficiency. So what I'm going to share with you today are 3 things that I think would be easy to implement for everyone that would definitely give you back more time. So before we do that, time management. We can't manage time. Time is going to continue to go on and it's going to continue to pass. We can't tell time what to do. We can't manage that. But what you can manage is your own actions and what you do with the limited time that we have every single day. So the first thing that you could try to do is add time into your day, right? So it's very simple. Number one, wake up earlier than what time you wake up now. So I started doing that when I was looking for time to exercise. So I wake up 2 hours earlier than what I used to do, which is now it's 5:30 is the time that I wake up. I just had a conversation with Robert Gilstrap the other day. I said, hey, I texted him at 7 a.m. and I was like, hey, are you up? He goes, what are you talking about? I've been up since 4:30. So I call him. I said, what do you do when like, why do you wake up at 4:30? He apparently exercises the same principle that a lot of successful people do. A lot of successful leaders do this. He wakes up at 4:30. Well, I do too, right? I wake up at 5:30, but the first thing you do is after you brush your teeth, make your bed, you do things for yourself. Like that is golden time where no one's bothering you, no one's emailing you, no one's calling you. You do things for yourself. So you exercise, drink your coffee, catch up on any podcasts, read articles that you enjoy reading, meditate. There's so much that you can put into a 2-hour window. So my first challenge to you is wake up 2 hours earlier. It will be a little bit difficult in the beginning, but you will get used to it. And the best thing is by 7 o'clock, you're going to feel so productive. You're going to be like, I feel like I've already done so much with my day, right? And you feel good from the exercise and all the positive chemicals that are in your brain. And then whatever happens for the rest of the day, even if you come across those, the people that are not happy with you, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, because those good chemicals that you put in your brain the first thing in the morning, they stay with you all day long. I can promise you. So set your alarm clock tonight to wake up 2 hours early. I want to hear how that works for you. Second thing is the 3 MVPs. The MVPs stand for most valuable priorities. So after you do your morning routine, you look at what your 3 MVPs are. Those are the 3 things that you have to get to that day. Whether it's you promise an investor that you're going to get them an analysis for their property, or you promised your team that you're going to get some information to them so that they can get back to their client. Whatever it is, figure out what your 3 MVPs are every single morning. And before you get into email, before you respond to anyone, knock out your 3 MVPs. So now you feel productive on the personal side. After you knock out your 3 MVPs, you just feel like you got things done, and nothing can replace that feeling. It's all about the productivity. Then after you finish your MVPs, you get into your email, you get into your calling people back, giving back time to yourself also means being in control of time, right? So we talked earlier, you can't manage time, but you can manage your own actions. So how do you control your actions? Is you control how you spend time. You do not let others control how you spend time. You control how you spend time. What I mean by that is, if someone asks you, hey, Dee, I need you to help me do this. Can you do it? What I say to them is it urgent? If it's not, I'm doing this right now. After I do this thing, then I'll be able to help you. Like, don't stop what you're doing just because it's someone else's priority. you focus on your priorities, and then you get to theirs when the time allows. So same thing, like if I'm doing my emails, I'm not touching anything else. If someone comes to me, if I get a text, I'm not looking at the text. If I'm, doing whatever it is, that is all I do. I do not let distractions stop me from doing what I do. That's how I get through all my email. My email, typically is clear by the end of the day because I have my email time. And then calling people back is the same thing. So when you plan out your day like that, you will be sure to get to your email, to get to your phone calls, to get your 3 MVPs done. Like, you're going to get to it as long as you stick with your time blocks. What happens a lot of times with poor time management, right, is we allow others to pull us in all different directions. And when that happens, you're like, what happened to my time? It got stolen. It got stolen by people, and it's no longer yours. So just get back your own time. The third thing is delegation. We all know the concept of delegation. That term has been thrown out for ages by everyone in leadership. Well, how do you delegate? So for me, and I talked about this at Broke-Roner a couple years ago, is I got a personal assistant, because for me, I realized that my time is worth a certain dollar amount. If I can hire someone for less to do some of these time sucker tasks, I can gain back more time that I can spend on myself. I can take my kids to the park. That to me is worth more money than anything, right? Or I can take that time to work on a big project or lay out goals or do whatever that is like a big vision thing. That's what I'm best at. So then I hired a personal assistant. At that time, her name is Amanda. A lot of you know her. And she started out, I delegated to her on things like, hey, will you go get my dry cleaning? I need to get a cake for my kid's birthday. Will you go pick it up? She's even come over to my house to set up for my kid's birthday party. Eventually, I gave her access to to a debit card so that she can go and make purchases on things on my behalf. She booked all my travels. She, filled out all my expense reports. I even got to a point, like once I started building trust with her, I had her go into my email and sort out my email so that I'm only responding to the most important emails and not worrying about the rest, because she'll go through it and she'll say, hey, Dee Dee, there's, these emails are the ones that you have to get to before you finish your day. The rest you can wait till tomorrow. Like, having her gave back my life. That was the biggest, most beneficial thing I ever did for myself, was hiring that personal assistant. And she just shadowed me all day long. And, I had to figure out what I could delegate to her. It was like an exercise that I had to do and learn. Like, you're not going to know at the beginning what all your personal assistant could do for you, but the more they do, the more you're going to want to give to them to do. So that was key to delegation. So what if you're the person that gets things delegated to you, right? So if you're the person that you're taking delegations from others, just make sure you have a clear boundary. Make sure that when your cup is full and you can't take anymore, let that person know, hey, I'm already so busy, I can't take on any more tasks. I think a lot of the times, I know my staff does this, and I keep telling them, let me know your boundaries, because I'm going to keep delegating to you until you tell me you can't do it. But a lot of them see that as being weak. Like, if they tell me, hey, I don't have enough time to do something, they're afraid that I might see them as being incapable or incompetent. And that's not the case. I think for a leader, it's important for staff to communicate to the leader what their boundaries are as well. And so encourage your staff Like, you know, or if you're that staff member, communicate your boundaries. So that's really all I have to share with you guys today. It's those 3 things. Wake up earlier. Make sure you knock out your 3 MVPs first thing in the morning, and delegate, you know, get a personal assistant if you're that busy and you really don't have any time at all for yourself or for your family. It's worth considering. There are VAs out there that you could hire to be your personal assistant. I know that for a fact. So in closing, my prompt is, what parts of your day could be automated and or delegated? I would love for you guys to have that discussion and come up with some ideas.
Amazing stuff, Dee Dee. Amazing stuff. Blue boxes are on the way for our last and final breakout of the afternoon.